The most valuable thing she ever found was something she could have kept. Claire Morgan never expected an ordinary afternoon at a quiet gas station outside a small American town to become the moment that changed two completely different lives forever. She was only trying to get through another busy day. As a single mother, every hour mattered. Every dollar mattered. Her mornings started early, her evenings ended late, and most of her choices were made with one thought in mind: creating a better future for her family. Claire was not someone who looked for shortcuts. She knew life was not always easy, but she believed that a person's character was revealed by the choices they made when nobody was watching. That belief was tested when she noticed a black leather wallet sitting near the gas station counter. At first, she thought someone nearby had simply forgotten it. She looked around, expecting the owner to return. But after several minutes passed, the wallet remained untouched. Claire picked it up carefully and looked inside, hoping to find information that would help her return it. What she discovered surprised her. Inside were identification cards, important documents, and signs that the owner was someone with a very different life from hers. The name belonged to Ethan Reynolds, a billionaire CEO known across the country for building one of the most successful technology companies in America. For a moment, Claire stood quietly, holding the wallet in her hands. She understood what it represented. Inside that small piece of leather was a world she knew nothing about. Wealth, influence, opportunity. She thought about her own life. The bills waiting at home. The responsibilities that never seemed to disappear. She knew that returning the wallet would not make her problems vanish. She knew nobody would blame her if she simply handed it to the gas station staff and walked away. But Claire also knew something deeper. The wallet was not hers. The money inside was not hers. The choices she made would define who she was. So she searched for a way to contact Ethan Reynolds. When she learned he was several miles away, she made a decision that surprised even herself. She would return it personally. The drive was not short. It was nearly 50 miles through familiar roads and quiet highways. But Claire did not think about the distance. She only thought about doing what was right. Meanwhile, Ethan Reynolds had no idea what was happening. His day was filled with meetings, business decisions, and conversations about million-dollar opportunities. But behind all of his success, Ethan had become accustomed to people wanting something from him. Almost every interaction came with a purpose. Almost every conversation had an expectation behind it. He never imagined that the person returning his wallet would ask for nothing at all. When Claire finally arrived, she stepped out of her car holding the wallet that connected two completely different worlds. Ethan looked at her with surprise. He expected questions. He expected requests. He expected someone to see the opportunity in front of them. But Claire simply held out the wallet and said it belonged to him. In that quiet moment, Ethan realized something he had not expected. He had lost a wallet that day, but he was about to discover something far more valuable. And Claire had no idea that one honest decision was about to change her life forever. Claire Morgan never expected the simple act of returning a wallet to create a moment that would stay in someone's memory forever. To her, it was just the right thing to do. She had not driven nearly 50 miles because she wanted recognition. She had not made the trip because she expected a reward. She had done it because she believed that honesty mattered, even when nobody was watching. But for Ethan Reynolds, the moment felt completely different. When Claire placed the wallet in his hands, he looked at her with genuine surprise. He had spent years surrounded by people who knew his name, his company, and his success. He was used to conversations that came with requests, opportunities, or hidden expectations. But Claire stood there calmly, asking for nothing. Ethan looked down at the wallet and then back at her. He thanked her and asked why she had gone so far out of her way to return it. Claire simply explained that she knew someone would want their important belongings back. Her answer was simple, almost too simple. But that was exactly what caught Ethan's attention. There was no performance in her words, no attempt to impress him, no desire to turn the situation into an opportunity. She had made a choice based only on what she believed was right. Ethan offered to compensate her for the drive, but Claire politely declined. She told him she did not return things because she expected something in return. She returned them because they belonged to someone else. Those words stayed with Ethan long after Claire left. As he watched her drive away in her older car, he found himself thinking about a conversation he had not planned to have. He wondered when he had last met someone who acted without calculating what they could gain. Later that evening, Ethan returned to his home in the city. The apartment was large, modern, and filled with everything most people dreamed of having. But for some reason, the quiet space felt different that night. He placed the wallet on his desk and remembered Claire's expression. She had not looked at him like a billionaire. She had looked at him like another person. That small detail affected him more than he expected. The next morning, Ethan continued with his normal schedule. Meetings filled his calendar. Business decisions waited for his attention. But his thoughts kept returning to the woman from the gas station. He asked his assistant to find publicly available information about Claire Morgan. He wanted to understand who she was, not because he wanted to judge her, but because he wanted to know what kind of person would make such a choice. The information he discovered surprised him. Claire was a single mother working hard to support her family. She lived a simple life, managed her responsibilities carefully, and continued moving forward despite challenges. She was not someone searching for attention. She was not someone waiting for someone else to change her life. She was someone who kept showing up every day and doing her best. Ethan looked at the details in front of him and realized something important. He had spent years studying success, but he had rarely studied the quiet strength behind ordinary people. Claire had no billionaire title. She had no powerful network. She had no influence in business circles. Yet she possessed something Ethan found increasingly rare: integrity. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan found himself wanting to know more about a person not because of what they could offer him, but because of what he could learn from them. After learning more about Claire Morgan, Ethan Reynolds found himself thinking about a question he had avoided for years. What truly made a person successful? He had spent most of his life surrounded by numbers, strategies, and ambitious goals. He knew how to build companies, create opportunities, and make difficult decisions. But Claire's story introduced him to a different kind of success, one that could not be measured by financial reports or business achievements. It was found in the quiet choices people made when there was nothing to gain. Ethan decided to visit the town where Claire lived. He wanted to understand the world she came from, not as a billionaire looking down from a distance, but as a person trying to learn something new. The drive took him away from the tall buildings and busy streets that defined his everyday life. Instead, he found a community where neighbors knew each other, local businesses were part of people's routines, and simple moments carried real meaning. When Ethan arrived near the small bakery where Claire worked, he noticed something immediately. People smiled when they saw her. Customers greeted her by name. She remembered small details about their lives and treated everyone with the same kindness she had shown him. Ethan stood quietly for a moment, watching from a distance. He realized that Claire's honesty at the gas station had not been a rare decision. It was simply who she was. When Claire finally noticed Ethan, she was surprised. She never expected the billionaire whose wallet she returned to appear at her workplace. Ethan explained that he was not there because of business. He wanted to thank her again and understand the person behind the choice that had stayed in his mind. Claire smiled and told him that she still did not think she had done anything special. She believed anyone should return something that did not belong to them. Ethan listened carefully because her answer revealed something important. Claire did not see herself as someone extraordinary. She did not believe she deserved praise for being honest. She simply lived according to her values. That was exactly what made her different. As they talked, Ethan learned more about Claire's life. He discovered that she was raising her child while working hard every day to create stability. She carried many responsibilities, but she rarely complained. Instead, she focused on what she could control and continued building a better future one step at a time. Claire also shared a dream she had quietly carried for years. She wanted to open her own bakery someday. She imagined a place where people could gather, where families could feel welcome, and where every customer would be treated with care. Ethan noticed the passion in her voice. He had met many people who wanted success because they wanted recognition. But Claire wanted success because she wanted to create something meaningful. That difference stayed with him. For the first time in a long time, Ethan saw an opportunity that had nothing to do with investment or profit. He saw a chance to support someone whose character already proved her worth. But he also understood something important. Claire did not need someone to rescue her. She needed someone to believe in her. And Ethan began wondering how he could help without taking away the independence and strength that made her who she was. The more Ethan Reynolds learned about Claire Morgan, the more he realized that her story was not about needing someone to change her life. It was about discovering what she was already capable of creating. For years, Ethan had built his world around solving problems with resources. When a challenge appeared, He found the best experts, invested the necessary money, and searched for the fastest path forward. That approach had made him successful. But Claire showed him that some things could not be solved with money alone. Some things required belief, patience, and the right opportunity. Ethan began thinking carefully about how he could support Claire's dream without making her feel like she owed him anything. He remembered the way she had returned his wallet. She had not wanted a reward. She had not wanted attention. She had simply done what was right. The last thing he wanted was to turn her kindness into a transaction. So instead of offering a simple financial gift, Ethan approached her with a different idea. He asked Claire if she would be willing to learn more about building a small business. He wanted to introduce her to people who could share knowledge about planning, budgeting, and creating a strong foundation. Claire was surprised by the offer. She appreciated his kindness, but she also felt uncertain. She had spent years depending on herself. Accepting help from someone as successful as Ethan felt unfamiliar. She worried that people might see her as someone who received an easy opportunity instead of someone who worked hard for her own future. Ethan understood her concern. He told her that support did not erase her effort. A person could receive guidance and still create something through their own dedication. His words made Claire think differently. Maybe accepting an opportunity did not mean losing independence. Maybe it meant allowing herself to grow. Slowly, Claire agreed to take the first steps. Ethan connected her with experienced business owners who helped her understand the details behind running a bakery. She learned about planning expenses, understanding customers, and creating a vision for a place that reflected her values. Throughout the process, Ethan noticed something that impressed him. Claire was not interested in simply creating a successful business. She wanted to create a place where people felt welcome. She wanted customers to feel remembered. She wanted every person who walked through the door to feel respected. Ethan had studied many successful companies, but Claire reminded him that the strongest businesses were often built around something deeper than profit. They were built around trust. As Claire worked toward her dream, Ethan's own perspective continued changing. He started noticing the people around him in a new way. Employees, who once felt like names on reports, became individuals with stories, families, and personal goals. He began asking more questions and listening more carefully. His company was still growing, but the way he led was becoming different. The billionaire CEO who once believed success was measured by achievements was beginning to understand that success also came from the impact a person had on others. Meanwhile, Claire continued moving forward with quiet determination. She was still a mother. She was still hardworking. She was still the same woman who drove 50 miles to return a wallet. The difference was that now she was beginning to see herself through a new lens. She was not just someone trying to get through each day. She was someone capable of building something meaningful. And neither Ethan nor Claire knew yet that their connection would soon face the moment that would reveal just how powerful their choices had become. Claire Morgan had spent years believing that some dreams were meant to stay dreams. Not because she lacked determination, but because life had always required her to focus on what needed to be done today. Taking care of her family, working long hours, and managing every responsibility had taught her to be practical. She learned how to keep moving forward, even when the future felt uncertain. But now, for the first time in years, Claire was allowing herself to imagine something more. She was not just thinking about getting through another week. She was thinking about building something that could last. With Ethan Reynolds supporting her journey, Claire began taking small but meaningful steps toward opening her own bakery. She spent evenings studying business plans after finishing her daily work. She learned about costs, customer needs, and the many details behind creating a successful local business. The process was not easy, but Claire welcomed the challenge. She had never expected success to arrive without effort. In fact, the hard work was part of what made the dream important to her. Ethan watched her dedication and respected something he rarely saw in the business world. Claire was not chasing attention. She was not trying to prove herself to anyone. She was simply building something she believed in. That quality reminded him of why he had become interested in helping her in the first place. Her honesty was not a single moment at a gas station. It was a way of living. One afternoon, Ethan invited Claire to meet with a group of experienced entrepreneurs. He wanted her to hear different perspectives and understand that every successful business had started with uncertainty. Claire entered the meeting feeling nervous. She was surrounded by people who had years of experience, impressive backgrounds, and professional connections. For a moment, She wondered if she truly belonged there. But as the conversation continued, something changed. People were not interested in her because Ethan introduced her. They were interested because of her ideas, her determination, and the genuine purpose behind her dream. Claire realized that she did not need to pretend to be someone else to earn respect. Her own story had value. Meanwhile, Ethan continued experiencing changes in his own life. The more time he spent with Claire, the more he questioned some of the beliefs that had guided him for years. He had always admired people who achieved great things, but now he was beginning to understand that achievement looked different for everyone. Claire had achieved something many people with wealth and influence struggled to find. She had created a life based on honesty, responsibility, and compassion. Ethan started bringing that lesson into his company. He began spending more time with employees, listening to their ideas, and understanding the people behind the work. His leadership style slowly changed. The company remained successful, but the atmosphere became more human. Claire noticed the difference in him. The man she first met at the gas station seemed distant and focused only on results. Now, she saw someone who was learning to appreciate the people around him. Their connection was no longer based on a lost wallet. It was based on mutual respect. Two people from completely different worlds had discovered that they both had something to learn from each other. Claire was learning that accepting an opportunity did not make her less independent. Ethan was learning that true success was not only about what a person could achieve alone. And as Claire moved closer to opening her bakery, neither of them realized that a new challenge was about to test everything they had learned. The weeks that followed brought changes that neither Claire Morgan nor Ethan Reynolds could have predicted. What started with a forgotten wallet had slowly become a connection built on trust, respect, and a deeper understanding of what truly mattered. But as Claire moved closer to opening her bakery, she faced a moment that reminded her why she had always depended on herself. Building a dream was exciting, but it also required courage, patience, and the willingness to keep going when things felt uncertain. Claire spent her days working at the bakery where she was employed and her evenings preparing for the future she imagined. She reviewed plans, studied numbers, and made careful decisions about every detail. She wanted her bakery to be more than a business. She wanted it to be a place where people felt welcomed, where neighbors could gather, and where kindness was part of the experience. Ethan admired that vision because it reminded him of something he had forgotten in his own world. The strongest foundations were not always built with the most money. They were built with purpose. When Claire faced challenges during the planning process, Ethan did not simply step in and solve them. Instead, he encouraged her to find solutions herself. He asked questions. He shared knowledge. He gave her access to resources, but he never took control of her dream. That difference mattered. Claire began to see that support did not mean losing her independence. It meant having someone believe in her abilities while she continued creating her own path. Ethan also began changing in ways that surprised the people around him. At his company, employees noticed that their CEO was becoming more approachable. He started having conversations that were not only about deadlines and performance. He wanted to understand the people behind the work. He listened to ideas from employees at every level and realized that everyone had something valuable to contribute. The same person who once measured success through achievements was now learning to measure it through impact. One evening, Ethan visited Claire's future bakery location. The space was still being prepared, with empty shelves and unfinished details, but Claire looked at it with excitement. She could already imagine the finished place. She could see families sitting together, customers enjoying fresh pastries, and a community forming around something she created. Ethan looked around and understood why this mattered so much to her. It was not about proving anything to the world. It was about creating something meaningful with her own hands. Claire thanked Ethan for believing in her, but he told her something that stayed with her. He said that he did not create her opportunity. He only helped her see the opportunity that was already there. Those words meant more to Claire than any financial support could have. She had spent years believing she was only trying to keep life together. Now she understood that she had always possessed the determination needed to build something greater. As the opening day of the bakery approached, both Claire and Ethan realized how much they had changed. Claire had learned that accepting help did not make her weaker. Ethan had learned that having everything did not mean having everything that mattered. Their lives had moved in different directions, but they were connected by the same lesson. A person's true worth was never defined by their circumstances. It was revealed through their choices. And soon, the world would see the result of one woman's honesty and one man's willingness to learn from it. The opening day of Claire Morgan's bakery arrived faster than she expected. After months of planning, learning, and countless hours of hard work, the dream that once existed only in her imagination had finally become real. As Claire stood outside the small bakery that morning, she looked at the sign above the entrance and felt a quiet sense of pride. This was not just a business. It was proof that determination could turn a simple idea into something meaningful. She remembered the days when she believed her. Life was only about managing responsibilities and making it through each week. Now, she was standing in front of something she had built with patience and courage. Ethan Reynolds arrived that morning, but he did not come as a billionaire CEO looking for attention. He came as someone who wanted to celebrate a person who had inspired him. He watched as Claire welcomed the first customers with the same kindness she had shown from the beginning. She remembered names. She listened to stories. She made people feel valued. Ethan realized that the bakery represented everything Claire believed in. It was not just about selling products. It was about creating a place where people felt connected. As the day continued, more people arrived. Some came because they knew Claire from the neighborhood. Others came because they had heard about her journey. Many were surprised to learn that the woman behind the bakery was the same person who had once returned a lost wallet belonging to a billionaire. But Claire never wanted her story to be about that one moment. She wanted people to remember the values behind it: honesty, hard work, kindness. During the opening celebration, Ethan was asked to say a few words. He stood in front of the guests and spoke about Claire, but he did not focus on the fact that she had helped him. Instead, he talked about what he had learned from her. He explained that success was not only measured by what someone built or how much they owned. It was also measured by the way they treated people when there was nothing to gain. Claire listened quietly. She was not used to being recognized. She had spent years focusing on others and rarely stopped to consider the impact she had made. Hearing Ethan's words helped her understand that her choices mattered more than she realized. Later that afternoon, Claire and Ethan stood together inside the bakery after the crowd had become smaller. The room was filled with the warm smell of fresh pastries and the sound of happy conversations. Ethan looked around and told her that this place represented something special. Claire smiled and said that she never would have reached this moment without believing that small actions could create big changes. Ethan agreed, but he reminded her that the opportunity only mattered because she had the courage to take it. Their journey had never been about one person saving another. It was about two people discovering strengths they already carried. Claire had helped Ethan remember the importance of humanity. Ethan had helped Claire recognize the possibilities beyond her circumstances. The people around them saw a successful businessman and a hard-working mother, but they saw something deeper. They saw two individuals who had changed because they were willing to learn from each other. And as the bakery doors closed that evening, Claire looked around the place she created and realized something important. The greatest rewards in life do not always arrive as money or recognition. Sometimes, they arrive as a reminder that one honest choice can become the beginning of an entirely new future. Months passed after the opening of Claire Morgan's bakery, but the meaning behind that day continued growing far beyond what anyone expected. The small neighborhood shop became more than a place where people bought fresh pastries. It became a place where people felt welcomed, remembered, and appreciated. Every morning, Claire arrived early, turned on the lights, prepared the kitchen, and looked around with a quiet smile. She still remembered the woman she had been before this journey began. A woman who worked hard, carried many responsibilities, and rarely allowed herself to imagine a different future. Now, she understood that her circumstances had never determined her potential. Her choices had. Ethan Reynolds continued watching Claire's progress with admiration. He saw how she handled success without changing who she was. More attention came to the bakery. More people learned her story, and more opportunities appeared. But Claire remained focused on the same values that guided her from the beginning. She treated every customer with respect. She listened carefully. She remembered that every person who entered her bakery had a story of their own. Ethan realized that this was the reason people connected with her. They were not only supporting a business. They were supporting the person behind it. The experience also continued changing Ethan's own life. Before meeting Claire, he had believed that successful leadership came from having the strongest strategy and the best resources. He still valued those things, but now he understood something more important. People were not numbers. Employees were not simply roles inside a company. Customers were not just transactions. Every person carried experiences, hopes, and challenges that deserved to be recognized. This new perspective changed the way Ethan approached his company. He encouraged his teams to focus more on collaboration and communication. He created more opportunities for employees to share ideas and feel heard. The company continued growing, but the culture inside it became different. People noticed that their CEO was no longer only focused on results. He was focused on the people creating those results. One evening, Ethan visited Claire's bakery after closing. The quiet space gave them a chance to talk about everything that had happened since the day they first met. Claire looked around the room and admitted that she still found it hard to believe how much had changed. She had returned a wallet because she believed it was the right thing to do. She never imagined that one decision would lead her to a new future. Ethan smiled and told her that the most important part of the story was not what happened afterward. It was the reason everything started. Claire had chosen honesty when nobody was asking her to. That choice revealed her character before anyone knew her name. Claire reminded Ethan that he had changed too. She told him that the man she met at the beginning seemed like someone who carried the weight of the entire world. Now, she saw someone who had learned to slow down and appreciate the people around him. Ethan thought about her words and realized they were true. He had gained many things throughout his career, but the lesson Claire gave him was something he could never have purchased. As they stood inside the bakery, surrounded by the warmth of the place Claire created, both understood that their connection was never about wealth or opportunity. It was about two people from different backgrounds discovering the value of kindness and trust. The wallet had brought them together, but the lessons they shared were what truly changed their lives. And with every passing day, they continued proving that the smallest choices could create the most meaningful transformations. Years after the day Claire Morgan returned a lost wallet, both she and Ethan Reynolds often looked back on that moment as the beginning of something neither of them could have expected. At the time, Claire believed she was simply doing what was right. She did not know that a small choice made at a quiet gas station would create a connection that would change the way two people saw success, opportunity, and the meaning of a fulfilling life. Claire's bakery continued to grow, but the most important thing about it was never the number of customers or the attention it received. It was the feeling people experienced when they walked through the door. Families gathered there. Neighbors became friends. Customers returned not only for the products but for the kindness they felt from the person who created the place. Claire had built more than a business. She had built a community. She remained the same person Ethan had met from the beginning. She still arrived early. She still listened carefully. She still believed that every person deserved respect. Success had not changed her because success was never the reason she started. She started because she wanted to create something meaningful. Ethan continued growing as a leader, but his definition of success had completely transformed. Years earlier, he believed the goal was always to achieve more, expand further, and reach the next milestone. Those goals were still important, but he understood now that they were only part of the story. A person could build a successful company and still miss the moments that gave life real meaning. Claire had shown him that true wealth was not only found in what someone owned. It was found in the values they carried and the impact they left on others. One afternoon, Ethan returned to the gas station where their journey first began. The place looked almost the same. The same roads surrounded it. The same quiet atmosphere remained. But Ethan was not the same person who had stood there years before. He thought about the wallet that had been returned to him and the lesson that came with it. The wallet itself was never the important part. It was only the beginning of a much bigger discovery. It reminded him that kindness could appear anywhere, from anyone, and that the most meaningful moments often arrived when people least expected them. Later that day, Ethan visited Claire's bakery. They sat together and talked about everything that had happened since their first meeting. Claire smiled as she remembered the long drive she had taken that day. She never imagined where that decision would lead. Ethan told her that he still admired the fact that she had done the right thing without knowing who he was. She had not treated him differently because of his success. She had simply treated him like another person. That was the lesson he carried with him. Their story was never about a billionaire helping a single mother or a single mother changing a billionaire's life. It was about two people meeting at the right moment and discovering something valuable in each other. Claire reminded Ethan that humanity mattered more than status. Ethan reminded Claire that accepting an opportunity did not reduce her strength. Together, they proved that one honest choice could create a future far beyond what anyone imagined. Because sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness are not just moments in time. They are the beginning of a completely different life.